Mr. Fix-It.
Proudly supported by Aquabion Ireland, the limescale treatment solution. Visit aquabioниreland.ie today.
Brian Cloonan, how are you on this fine day?
Sorry about that.
Wakey.
My apologies, the headphones weren't on. Now, you notice I didn't say I didn't have the headphones on. They just weren't on. You know, it's like we get
the lights
customers.
are often on with you and nobody's home.
We sometimes get customers in the shop and they say, this broke. You know, it's not a case of I broke it. It just broke.
Spontaneously. All by itself.
Exactly.
Well, let's get down to business. I'm in great form.
Good.
Absolutely.
You look
great
shook,
form.
I have to tell you. You look really shook. You all right?
Well, look, you're practically invisible, you are. You've wasted away to nothing.
No, I'm afraid not. When I'm at home, I'm fine. My eating habits, you know, on a working day are fine. But when I'm at home, if there's anything sweet in the house, I just eat and eat and eat.
Yeah, but you've one of those hateable metabolisms that burns it off instantly.
Well, I know. You see, I never stop. I'm always on my feet, even when I shouldn't be. Like, at the moment, I'm not supposed to be on my feet, but I'm still always on the go. It's annoying and a very annoying trait. If I had the lazy gene that you had, I'd say my knee replacement would be 100% by now.
Yeah. Well, look, I think you should stay on your feet as much as you can, somewhere around the cliffs of Moher, preferably, on a windy day.
Brilliant. Okay,
now,
we'll give you, definitely give you points for that one.
Bernie has the first question, and it concerns her Velux windows upstairs. And there's a small leak at the base of the frame, and she certainly wants to avoid a replacement or anything expensive.
Sure.
Is there an easy fix here?
Yeah, so look, 9 times out of 10 using one of the, not technically a silicone, but it is a silicone base. It's any of the, so Tech 7, Stixol, Fixol, any of those things that actually stick to a damp surface, they have a very high adhesion rate. They really stick very, very well to everything. And the one I'd always go for is the crystal clear one because, you know, it's the less chance of you seeing it. Not that you should be able to see it from unless Aer Lingus can see it as they fly over. But the problem here is just identifying where the water is coming in, because as we always say on this, the leak will always present at the drip inside will always present at the lowest point. So the split or the crack or whatever it is, it could be in the lead flashing, it could be a bit of cement missing. So unfortunately someone needs to get up. Now you might be able to just stand up on a stepladder and open the Velux and look out and do an inspection. It depends on the size of the Velux window. If it's enough for your shoulders and head to get through, you should be able to do an inspection and do the fix from inside. If you're doing it from outside, make sure you know what you're doing, or get someone who A, knows what they're doing, and B, is insured to get up on your roof. But always remember, the leak can be at the very highest point. So the way I always put it is, the leak can be in the top left-hand corner, but it'll present in the bottom right-hand corner because that's the way the water is going to run, and it's always going to drip at the lowest point. So even though the leak might be at the highest point, coming in, it'll drip. It'll run down to the lowest point and drip. So, but Stixol, Fixol, Tech 7, any of those generic. By the way, I was in the pharmacy one time, and a lady came in and she wanted. She wanted we'll say a painkiller, but she didn't want the genuine article. So, but instead of saying generic, she said she wanted the genetic one. And now I always have to stop and think, am I asking? And I was saying, after she left, I said it to the pharmacist or whoever I was dealing with, and they said, oh, stop, Brian. Some people say genetic, other people say geriatric.
Well, geriatric would have been worse, definitely.
Absolutely. But the problem is, once you hear it, you have to kind of stop and think in case you say it yourself.
Yeah, you certainly don't want to put your foot in it.
Yeah, we remember a lady who used to always talk about her husband never got a cold because he always wore the terminal vests during the winter. The terminal vests during the winter.
Aha, yes, yeah. As opposed to the thermal vests.
There you go.
Indeed.
Yep.
Next is Anne, who says she left a metal ornament on a paving stone in the middle of her patio over the winter.
Okay.
So doing the spring cleaning at the weekend, she decided to move it and discovered a horrid rusty stain on the paving stone. And it's brown and it's rusty and it's right in the middle. Can't hide it. And she's wondering if the stone is ruined because it's going to be hard to find another one to match in.
Right. So really 9 times out of 10 using a phosphoric acid, which is most of the lime descaler products, will work on that. So that would be the Haggis and Blue, the HG descaler, just any descaler that is a surface descaler, normally used for cleaning shower trays and shower doors and wash hand basins and so on. And you put that on, you cover it, just check that it is phosphoric acid based. And it should always say it on the back of the bottle, or where you're buying it should know. Put that on and leave it for about 3 hours, but cover it in cling film because you can't allow it to dry out. So don't do it on a very hot sunny day. The concrete, the stone, the paving slab can be wet. In fact, all to the better if it is wet. Put it on. As I say, 2, 3, 4 hours. It's really a matter of test it and see. But I'd say in this case, if it's really bad, leave it 4 hours. Now, if it's concrete, you can leave it even longer. But if it's stone, so if it was limestone or granite, you'd only leave it 3 or 4 hours because it'll dull the surface. Now, it doesn't matter with concrete, but on a stone, it will dull the surface. So now the stone will be clean, but when you stand back from a distance and look at it, you'd see where it's just a different finish on the stone. Now look, in the fullness of time it'll probably all even out and you won't notice it. But that 9 times out of 10, that will do it without taking a huge effort or costing a fortune. So a bottle of descaler somewhere between 8 and 10 quid, 12 quid depending on the size, and just a little bit of time and effort in putting it on, leaving it for a few hours, and then scrub and then wash it off completely, hose it off. Don't just give it a scrub and walk away. You have to wash it off completely.
Brian, stay there for a moment. Lots of questions to get through. And 083 30 10 103. Easiest way to text or WhatsApp your query to us. But if you want to come on air and pick his brain, then do pick up that phone and make that call as well.
Mr. Fix-It. Proudly supported by AquaBion Ireland, the limescale treatment solution. Visit aquabionireland.ie today.
When you call 0818 300 103 is the Midlands 103 comment line, and Brian Cloonan is with us until 11. So our next query: I have a shocking smell in the hot press, says Maureen, who isn't entirely sure what the cause is, but it really does stink. Have you guys any idea what might be to blame? So without going out and sniffing it, Brian...
What would you think, Will? What would you think yourself?
Possibly a dead mouse?
There you go. Yeah, so I'd say it's a dead mouse, dead rat, dead mouse, or shrews, a nest of shrews. So the shrews, seemingly the nest itself can smell really badly, but it's nearly always a dead mouse. So... unfortunately, it's a case of take stuff out and see. You'll probably find the dead mouse if you take everything out. Obviously, it's almost certainly just at the bottom level, so you don't really have to take everything from the shelves above. It can be up there, but it would be unusual. So take everything out from the ground floor level of anything that's on the bottom of the hot press. Now, the problem can be it mightn't be in the hot press at all. It can be in the wall cavity, and there's an opening where pipes are coming through the wall, and the opening where the pipes are coming through is letting the smell out. So if that's the case, a dead mouse takes kind of a week to 10 days for the smell to it'll take a bit longer to disappear completely. And the problem is with the hot press, it's very warm, so the smell always will be worse, and it's very enclosed, so the smell is kind of trapped. So you'd be saying take out what you can easily and leave the door open, or even just leave it open at night time and leave it and close it during the day, or vice versa, whatever you feel. But I'd always put put down a couple of traps. There's never one mouse. You just wonder why, if you didn't put down poison, why there's a dead mouse. But I would say that's what it is. Hopefully it's not a dead. It'd be very, very, very unusual to have a rat inside the house. If it's a rat, it will be obviously a much stronger smell, and it will last much longer. You would have to find it if it's a rat. But I'd say almost certainly just a mouse, and it just smells so bad because of the heat in the hot press.
You had often another suspect, and it was more common in, let's say,
the light switch. I forgot that.
Yeah,
you're right. So there is a light. This is quite a common complaint in houses that were built in the kind of 70s and 80s, and that is where you have a light pendant, as it's called, so just a bulb holder hanging down. And very often in the hot press, that's all that will be in it, will be just a single light bulb hanging down. And what happens is, particularly if someone, so this little bulb holder that you put the bulb into hanging down, little white bulb holder fixed at the end of a white bit of flex, and it's rated for a 60-watt bulb, and of course people put in a stronger bulb and it gets hot, and then over time, you're dead right, well done, top marks, Will Forter.
Yes.
It can become very smelly, and it smells just like a dead mouse. Now, it's only when the bulb is on. So I don't think that's the case in this case, because if you open the hot press and the smell is there, well, then it's not the bulb holder, unless somebody has left the bulb on. Normally, you only turn on the light in the hot press when you're taking something out or putting something in. So, and it takes a while. So you'd turn on the bulb when there's no smell, and then you come back in 10, 15 minutes later and there is a smell. So that's why it often happens in other rooms in the house, like bedrooms and so on, where people leave the light bulb on for a while. I don't think that's the case, but definitely you're dead right. Rule it out. Turn on the bulb, climb up and smell it.
Now, 0818 300 103 is the Midlands 103 comment line, and you can text or WhatsApp 083 30 10 103, powered by Lamb Brothers Toyota in Tullamore. Jackie says, Will, what would you do if somebody pushed Brian off that cliff? Who would do DIY on a Wednesday?
Thanks, Jackie.
I would love to find out, Jackie.
Please send your curriculum vitae too.
Yes, that sounds like a great experiment. We should try it. A listener has sent a screen grab, having listened to the earlier conversation about smart meters, and only for listening to Midlands 103, they wouldn't have checked this, but they have been charged €1,000 from 4 o'clock to 11 o'clock last Saturday.
Oh my God.
And 1 hour there, it's north of €150. Another hour north.
I'm right. I never would think of looking. I suppose you'd see it when it hits the bank, but then you're trying to retrospectively fight with them to get it back.
Yeah.
Wow.
It claims they use over 3,000 kilowatts of electricity.
Oh my
now,
God.
I'll put it this way. An electric car, most of them, from 0 to 100% might be around 70 kilowatts.
Wow.
So do the maths. That's like charging your EV 400 times.
Good Lord.
What is the best solution to clean polycarbonate?
Well, usually to clean polycarbonate, it's just the green algae growing on it. So any of the biocides, just spray it on and leave it to work. Don't use anything abrasive is the big thing. So all the biocides tend to have, so that would be the likes of Drive Clear, ActiWash, Moscow, HG algae killer, all of those, you just spray them on and leave them to work. And they have a detergent in it. So what I would say is leave it on for, maybe a week, and then you can just wash it off. The big thing is not to use anything that has an acid in it or anything that has an abrasive action, because an acid will always etch. So sometimes people say, you know what you do now? Put on vinegar on that. But vinegar is an acid, and an acid will etch the surface, and that means that you mightn't see it immediately, but it gets a slightly rougher surface, so it dulls the surface, but it also means that it is now much more prone to getting algae in the future. Because if you look at, say, a pane of glass, it's super smooth, and then algae finds it very hard to grow on it. But if you sandblast that, so if you had a window in a bedroom and you converted the bedroom to a bathroom, you'd now don't want to be able to see in through the glass. So you'd put in sandblasted glass. So you might actually take out the panel that's in it and get it sandblasted, or you might put in sandblasted glass. And if that sandblasted was facing out to the elements, that particular glass panel would get algae much quicker than any other window, because of the fact that it's a rougher surface and therefore holds the moisture and therefore the algae into the future much better. So just be careful with what you use, something that won't do any damage. I say any of the biocides will not affect polycarbonate at all and will kill it off without a problem.
Next, suggestion for the paving stone with the rust.
Yeah.
If what you offered doesn't work, then try moving that particular stone to a lesser noticeable location and just
great
switch
idea.
stones.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. Look, hopefully, again, what you offered will actually pay off.
Yeah, but you know what? It probably will, remove 95% of it. But if I remember saying, the listener was saying it's right in the middle in a very visible area. So the caller is dead right. And you know what? It would be easier to do that if you're going to lift the stone anyway. Lift it before you clean it, and then you're doing it up at the level of a worktop as opposed to down on your hands and knees. And you can also do it a couple of times if you have it inside, or you could do it at the kitchen sink where you can really scrub it and put hot water on it if you wanted. But moving it to the less noticeable area is a great idea.
Listener says, without notice, we got air to water, and I'm not able to work because of illness, so my means are limited. But my ESB bill, because of this heating system, came in at €500. I don't have a television. I've taken out the electric cooker. The washing machine wasn't really working for 3 weeks of the bill. Don't have a dishwasher, various gadgets. I bought a 2-ring gas cooker and I boiled the kettle on that. I used candles at night and one small lamp, and I thought the February bill would reflect my efforts a bit more, but obviously not. Have any of your listeners got the same problem? So, air to water, if you've got good air tightness in the home, good insulation, then that can be very effective. But if you don't, if it's an older property, we've had many listeners complain over the years that their electricity bills are sky high.
Yeah, that's the problem. It has to be done in tandem. You have to make sure that your air tightness, to put it into an existing older house, can really be very, very expensive to run. Wow.
A listener says, many years ago, I had a Pong in a room and I heard Brian talking about the light bulb, so I got up on the ladder for a sniff. Exactly when my neighbour walked in to see me on the ladder sniffing the bulb. Bad timing.
Yeah, absolutely. And then she says, Brian Cloonan said to do it. And the man is saying, I think he's pulling your leg. Is it April Fool's Day?
Oh dear. Anyway, our next listener is Michael, and he says he got a small stove in his kitchen. Doesn't know how, but the glass in it has broken in 3 places. So he's ordered new glass, but it's going to take 3 weeks to get this sorted. And with the price of oil and a cold weekend coming, he says he can't be without the stove. Any temporary fix?
Yeah. Well, I suppose 2 things. Remember, you can go to your local glazer and bring the 3 pieces with you, and they will cut a piece of heat-resistant glass for you. But if he has actually ordered it as a special part from, the stove people, then all you do is get some 2-pack filler, so Isopon or any of those 2-pack fillers. Now, it'll be grey in colour or maybe off-white in colour, so it won't look fantastic, but it'll be giving out the heat. The glass probably covered in well, if it is covered in, very often the inside of a glass of a stove will be covered with a deposit of carbon, the black soot deposit. Make sure you have to clean that off. But what you would do is lay the 3 pieces of glass together, lay them down flat, and put them together like a jigsaw, and just put on a good dollop of 2-pack filler or Isopon filler on the glass all along the joint, and definitely it'll stick it together and it'll take the heat. But you're making sure it overlaps, so you're not trying to. The other way, if you bring two pieces of glass together and you were using a glue to glue it, you'd just be gluing along the edge and then pushing them together. In this case, you're sitting it down flat, you're pushing it together like a jigsaw, and then over the joint, you're placing the Isopon filler, Isopon 2-pack. I'm using the word Isopon, but whatever brand you want to use, it doesn't matter once it's a 2-pack, and that will take the heat without a problem whatsoever. And you can wait then, it'll work. It won't look fantastic, but the stove will work away and pump out heat, and it won't be affected by the heat whatsoever.
Kevin in Mount Mellick says he's in trouble. He power washed the patio at the weekend, but now the joints between all the slabs have washed out.
Yeah.
What's the easiest way to refill?
I suppose the easiest way is just get a bucket of coloured sand and put it in, but the problem is it does come out again. I suppose the better one is you can buy, if you go to anybody that sells the paving slabs, or most of the builders providers or hardwares have it, you can buy a bucket of filler, and it's really easy to use. Just make sure you use it on a dry day, and it comes out just like a very fine, dry sand. So it's really easy to use. You can just pour it along the joints, get a sweeping brush, sweep it into place. But then once the air gets at it, there's a chemical reaction and it sets like cement. So it doesn't power wash out unless you go very aggressively at it, the way the sand on its own does. But if it power washed out very easily, all that was in it was sand. So you can certainly go back to using the sand again. The 2-pack filler will last longer, look better, much better at keeping weeds down, but it's also more expensive compared to a bucket of ordinary sand. But equally as well, it's nearly as easy to do the job one as the other. And the 2-pack, or it's not a 2-pack, it's an epoxy mix that once the air gets at it, it sets, is much more expensive.
Next caller lives in a Cloonan house, and about a year ago, air to water was installed. They also improved the windows and the doors. And the problem is, we never had any mould in the house until last year. So any thoughts on preventing it would be greatly appreciated. Common issue, isn't it, when insulation is improved?
Yeah, it's a very common problem. We get people in and they say, we never had mould, and they often say, and I wouldn't mind. We got new windows last year, but the old windows were letting a draft through, and the draft through was providing ventilation. So you'd have to just ask the question: is there ventilation? Is there any ventilation, and what sort of ventilation is there? But in terms of preventing the mould, any of the mould killers will tend to work. So you put on the mould killer, leave it 24 hours to work. Now you can wash off the mould. It's dead now. It's safe to wash it off, but you'd never wash off mould when it's alive, because you just spread it everywhere and make it 10 times worse. And you may have to do a little bit of repainting, depending how long the mould is there and how bad it is. But whether you're just washing it off or whether you're washing it off and repainting, at the end of everything, you reapply the mould killer a second time. It's a clear liquid. Nearly all of them are just a clear liquid. You just reapply it and don't wash it off. And that leaves a film of mould killer to stop it coming back in the future. And if you can take note this year where the problem is, and then just every September, if you just gave a wipe, just literally get a sponge, dip it in the mould killer and wipe it over the surface, or spray it onto the surface and just leave it to dry, you won't have mould there ever again. Just do it at the start of every year, at the start of every winter, and you'll never. It's a 5-minute job if you do it before the mould starts to form. It's only when the mould starts to form it becomes a much bigger job.
Yes. Now, our next listener is Geraldine in Eden Derry, who says her outside tap is leaking slowly at the point where the hose connects. And she's wondering if it's just a washer jobby or something bigger.
Well, if it's where the hose connects, it would sound as though just tightening well, it depends how handy you are. You could tighten that nut, or you could take off that and turn off the water, take off that nut that the pipe's going into, put on a bit of PTFE tape, which is a little roll of tape. It'll cost you €1. Wrap it around the joints and then retighten it again and turn the water back on, and hopefully it'll be fine. But the other thing you could do, we mentioned 2-pack filler there earlier. If you got a 2-pack filler and applied it to the leak, it'll stop the leak. So it depends really how handy you are. I'll tell you what you can buy. You'll buy it in a hardware shop or a motor factor's or a plumbing shop. It's called 2-pack putty. So it's a little bit like, it's like plasticine or Mala, and but what it amounts to is there's 2 different colours. So there's this little stick of, we call it plasticine, and it's as malleable as plasticine is, until you mix it together. So there's 2 colours in it. We'll say there's a grey and a white, or black. We call it black and white. And once you mix them together and it becomes grey, now because they're equally mixed, and then it will set exactly like 2-pack filler without the mixing of the 2-pack filler the way you normally would. And it makes it really easy to mould it all around the joint of this to stop it. And it's an outside tap, so how it looks isn't the end of the world if you have this kind of grey filler all around it. No one's going to be paying any attention to it.
Now, in the next hour, a group of students from Athlone have invented a very novel way of reusing large bags, and Sinead Hubble will be here with the details of that, including as well, if you want to tune up the voice, a festival could be just the answer to divert you for a couple of hours. And the Irish Bioenergy Association claims that retrofitting isn't the only way that Ireland can meet its climate goals. But obviously, if you're a homeowner, can you go over to biofuels, or is it going to be more expensive in the long run? Anyway, we'll deal with 1 or 2 more questions before we conclude, Brian. Denise in Portarlington has moved a rug while doing the spring clean and has found that the timber floor underneath is now lighter than the rest of the room. Is there a way to blend it in again?
Oh, not really. If you leave the rug off, it will eventually all even up. The only way to do that would be to put on a coloured varnish, but you'll never match it. You'll find now you've put on a coloured varnish, it doesn't look that bad, and then in the fullness of time the coloured varnish will now look darker than everywhere else. So I would say just leave it. Probability is no one else will even notice it to the same extent as you will, and it will even up in the fullness of time. Now, the other option would be if you have a wooden floor that is down a while. It's amazing now the way the flooring people can come in and give a sand without any dust whatsoever and give a coat of varnish that'll bring the floor right back up. And because they've sanded a tiny bit off the entire surface, it'll actually make it all equal again, because it's only where that it's literally in the top couple of microns of varnish that the fading is. So we've a wooden floor in the shop, and I was always afraid to get a resurface because the dust historically used to go everywhere, so you had to cover everything in the shop. But nowadays it's genuinely dustless sanding, and it just does a fantastic job on lifting a wooden floor and bringing it back to look like brand new.
Okay, 1 more. This is from Paul, who says one of his kitchen presses has come loose and it's not staying tight no matter how hard he screws it. Is there a simple way to fix the hinge?
Look, it depends entirely on the hinge, but those hinges are nearly always a stainless steel Blum hinge, and they're really easy to replace, and then they're very small money. Like a pair of spring-loaded with Blum hinges are €4 or €5, €3 or €4 probably, and just always replace the pair. If anytime you're replacing a spring-loaded hinge like that, sometimes people would say it's only one hinge that's damaged, and they'll replace one hinge, but unless it's the very same brand of hinge, it's engineered slightly differently, and they'll pull against each other. So I would say to you, if you've tried it, there are adjusting screws on all those hinges now. So if you've tried the adjusting screws on the hinge and it's not making any difference, then just replace the hinge. But there are adjusting screws on all of those that allow you to move the hinge in and out to make it for a tighter close.
Brian, thanks very much for your time. We'll chat again next Wednesday, 20 past. What has gone wrong with us being so civil?
Yeah, it won't last.
Feck off, will you?
Likewise.
So you'll find him at Cloonan's Hardware in Tullamore, and I'll chat to you tomorrow morning from 9.